I'm Joshua Moffitt. Today's date's the 3rd of March 2019. This is my week 1 practical application. My student ID is JOMO07033 for FTT 111D. The firearm we're using for this application is a Smith Wesson 9mm shield. The first thing that we're going to do is ensure that this firearm is safe prior to going through the rest of the check and make sure it's clear of any ammunition. To do that, I'm going to visually inspect that the safety selector is up in a safe position, which will keep the trigger from depressing and causing a round to go off. Once I have verified that the weapon is safe, I'm going to remove the feeding source by pressing the magazine release and removing that magazine that has the rest of the cartridges in it. I'm going to set that to the side. Now I'm going to unlock and open the action manually and extract or eject any cartridges that may be inside. Pointing to my weapon in a safe direction, I'm going to pull it back and lock it to the rear. By doing this, this allows me to visually check, and if I have to, physically check as well to make sure there is no round inside of the chamber. Once I have done that step and I've noticed there is no other ammunition in or around this firearm, it is now clear. So now that we've checked and made sure that there's no live ammunition around and we've cleared this weapon, we're going to go ahead and do the initial functions check. This functions check is going to be conducted dry with no snap caps or dummy rounds. And always remembering that when dealing with firearms, they treat it as if it's always loaded. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that this firearm is oriented in a safe direction while doing all these tests. First things first, we're going to go ahead and release the action back forward, and we're going to check the fire control group to ensure with the safety on that the hammer does not fall. And by doing so, we're going to visually and physically check that the safety is up in the position which says it's safe. We're going to go ahead and pull the trigger back. With a little bit of play in the trigger, which is fine, the hammer does not fall. From this, we're going to switch the selector switch from safe to fire, and then we're going to depress the hammer again. There, at that time, the hammer fell, and that's telling me that the fire control group is operating how it should be. Now I'm going to pull the action back again, feeling for any abnormalities within going through the cocking procedure. And then I'm going to put the firearm back on safe. When going through the steps, you want to manipulate the firearm slowly to ensure that you're feeling for any abnormalities that might be happening internally prior to using any snap caps or dummy rounds. But as of right now, this firearm is functioning well with doing the initial functions check. There's nothing that's I can feel that's out of place or that's wrong with this firearm. So our next step is we're going to utilize the snap caps, which you want to make sure that you're using the proper caliber snap caps for the firearm that you want to test. So I'm going to take my magazine and insert it into the magazine well of the firearm, still showing that it's in a safe position. Then going through the motions and going through the loading procedure of the firearm, a snap cap has now been loaded. Once I have done that, I'm going to go ahead with the firearm still in safe position, depress the trigger with the firearm state orientated in a safe direction as well. Again, the hammer does not fall. From this step, I'm going to take the selector switch from safe down to fire and conduct the same movement by pulling the trigger back and listening for the hammer making contact with the snap cap, which it did. From here, the next step I'm going to take is pulling the action back, which should take the snap cap through the process of the extraction and the ejection portion. So by doing so, by manipulating the action, I'm going to pull it back and the snap cap is ejected. Now allowing the action to go forward again, it should take another snap cap and load it right within and seating inside of the chamber, which it did. You can visually check by just pulling the action back just a little bit and seeing the red portion of the snap cap, and that's indicating that the next one is just loaded inside of the chamber. From here, I'll go ahead and put the firearm back on safe. I will press the magazine depress and remove the remainder of the snap caps. And I'm going to eject and visually inspect again to ensure this firearm is clear, which it is, and go ahead and lock it back to the rear. So this concludes my week 1 practical application of clearing a firearm and conducting a functions check. If this firearm would have been a double action, which means it would have had an external hammer, I would have put this weapon inside of a vise and tapped it with a rubber or nylon mallet. But since it didn't have a double action, I skipped that step. Another method we could have done is gone to a live fire range and tested with live ammunition. But we just went ahead and completed with an initial functions check by checking the functionality of this firearm prior to using snap caps or dummy rounds. And then the second phase, we stepped it up and utilized the snap caps to make sure that the extraction and ejection were going to function well, in which they did with this firearm. So this will conclude the rest of my week 1 application. Thank you.